Hello everybody, I just wanted to do a really quick video to kind of tease what I've been working on with my Firebase Composables plugin. And this is actually going to work on any Vue project, it's not just a Quasar specific thing. So I've got all of these socials set up. I wasn't able to set up the other ones yet because I haven't found a way to do it really cleanly. So we're just going to start with the GitHub, Google, Facebook, Twitter, but of course you could easily implement your own. Yeah, so you can log in. And this is just an example page to basically show that it's all working. So you can put in a post here, my personal post just for me, and then put in some body there. And there we go. That's basically syncing your Firebase data. So I've got some code behind the scenes that allows you to very easily sync Firebase data. And a lot of the concepts for that was actually stolen from the Vue.use composables. And so like a big thank you to those guys for all the work that they did. And maybe I could even contribute some of this back. And the reason I couldn't use actually their composable libraries because they're currently on Firebase 8 and they're just about to move to Firebase 9. So once they move to Firebase 9, I'll probably just use what they're using behind the scenes. But yeah, this is all data that's basically scoped to a specific user and it's protected. So I'm going to show you all when I do this tutorial series how to do that and make sure that you can have things like posts, notes, or whatever data scoped to a specific user that is not accessible by other users. And I'll show you that. So we've got this only for Crazy Buzz to see. That's because my email is Crazy Buzz. Let's click on the logout there. And I'm going to sign in using GitHub. So we'll give that a second. It should skip the whole process because I've already authenticated the app. And there we go. This is a different user with their own set of posts, blah, 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 blah. And there we go. Once again, all of this data is nicely in sync. And just to give you an idea of what some of this code looks like, I'll have to clean this up a little bit, but notice that we've got the Firebase Composables library, which I've created, and that's what we're pulling all of this out of. And we're basically just plucking out use email sign in and redirect if authenticated. Now, this redirect if authenticated basically checks if you're authenticated, and if you are, it's going to push you to the home page. I'll show you what I mean by that. So let me just get out of full screen here. So if I were to try and go to the home page, let's just log out, and I am not logged in, notice that it basically just sends me straight back here, right? Which is exactly what you would want it to do. And if you want, you can do that at a routing level so that you don't end up with that flash on the screen, but this is just for demonstration purposes. And it's the same with the login page. So if I log in now and I try and go back to that login page, it sends me straight back here. And once again, you can do whatever coding you need to do in order to prevent that flash screen there. But yeah, that's what this is doing. It's basically a really easy way, and you can get rid of this unchecked value if you wanted to, and literally just whack that directly in there, and it's going to redirect you to the page that you've given if you are or aren't authenticated. There's another one which is redirect if unauthenticated as well. So that's what's happening there. This is just basically pulling stuff in. This is handling basically a loading spinner. If this takes a while to check, then you can get a loading spinner to show up on that login page. Now, but this is where the magic happens. So here we're plucking out a sign-in function, but on top of that, we're also plucking out the form. So you don't have to do any of the effort to build the form as well. In fact, what's happening here with the form ref? Okay, so some of this might actually be redundant. We might be able to validate that in line. But anyway, so we pluck out the form there, and we've even got things like loading state has errors. You don't have to do any of the implementation for that. It's all done for you through this use email sign-in. And then essentially what we're doing is I've created some custom validation here, but for a very sort of naive example, you could literally just do this. You could say, let's get rid of all of that. And this is what I'll do in the tutorial to show you a naive example. You could essentially just do that. Await the sign-in. When it's done, push them to the next page. That's literally all you have to do to get signing in working. But once again, as I mentioned, I've done like a little bit of extra validation here to make the experience a bit nice and give a fuller example here. And as you can see, so if I come in here to my form, has errors, all this stuff is actually being used down here in the form itself. So we've got the email login form that I've created, and I'm probably going to create an app extension as well that will create this login form for you, so you don't even have to do all the logic to create this form itself. And so essentially what this is doing is it's taking that form and modeling it. Remember, this is the one that we pulled out of our composable. And then if there are any errors, we can check if there's any errors. And if there are, then we can show that error message. So once again, we basically just use this reactivity that's already available to us. We don't have to implement it ourselves, which is one of the great things that we get from the composition API. And once again, loading, that's already been implemented for you, and all you have to do is basically pass it through to the button. And if you weren't using Quasar, you could basically do any loading state how you like. So for example, you could even just have a spinner like this and implement your own loading, and by saying maybe something like v-if is equal to loading. And just to sort of drive this home and make it clear, loading there is being pulled out from use email sign-in. All the stuff related to email sign-in is being pulled out of here. And by the way, if you ended up with any clashes there, you could, for example, say email sign-in service or something like that. And then basically you get all of those variables out of the email sign-in service. In fact, this is what I like to do with larger applications. So for example, here has errors, you'd say email sign-in service dot has errors. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. But since we don't have any clashes, I'm basically just plucking all those variables out directly. But yeah, you might want to be more explicit there when you're using the comp API. So yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to show you. I've also implemented kind of the exact same concept with social providers as well. So let's go into this social providers card. And it's basically pulling through from a list of social providers. Where have I done that? I think I've done it in components. Here we go, use auth providers. And we've got all of these social providers that have a very similar API to that email login that I just showed you. So use Firebase GitHub auth. Let's just dive in there and have a look at what it does. Actually, the best way to do this is probably to just say something like this. Const auth is equal to, yeah, and then we can say auth dot, and you can see we've got our errors. We've got has errors. We've got the loading and the sign-in. So this is very similar. These auth providers work in a very similar way to the email sign-in. So yes, that's what I wanted to show all of you. It's not done yet. I guess it actually kind of is done. It's usable in its current state, but it's very much in alpha at the moment. Yeah, everything's working. I want to make sure that I've got a nice tutorial series that you can all play around with. So that you've got an idea of how to actually use these composables before I do a stable release. And there you go. That is the Firebase composable library. Hopefully we'll be ready to create a Quasar tutorial series for that in the coming weeks. Oh, actually, before I finish this up, I need to tell you to go to quasarcast.com, because if you want to see these latest videos, eventually they're not all going to show up on YouTube. You're going to have to go to quasarcast.com. At the moment, this is pretty much just synced with all my YouTube stuff. But at some point down the line, since they won't be, you want to make sure you're going to sign up on this site, and you know when a lot of this, so that you know when a lot of this stuff becomes available. All right, there we go. Bye for now, and thank you for watching.